comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have no community presentations, delegations. We have 3, 2 that are going to be live and 1 that's written. We'll start with the first one. Our first delegation is Mr. Jim Thompson from the Aurora Tigers Junior A Hockey Club regarding Aurora Tigers Junior A ice allocation for practice time this season. So, Mr. Clerk, if we can get Mr. Thompson in.
Hello? Hello?
Hi, Jim, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, Jim, just gonna welcome. We're just gonna let you know you have 5 minutes as usual.
Yep.
And then after that, I'll ask council if they have any comments or questions. You know the drill, just repeating it for everyone's sake. And then we'll go from there. So you have 5 minutes. The floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thank you for seeing me. What I'm requesting is Mondays. I originally requested Tuesdays, practices from 3:30 to 5. I'll go through all the reasons why we need that change, but working with SAC, I'm only going to request tonight Mondays, 3:30 to 5. The reasons for my request are the majority of our hockey team is in high school. It can't be to the rink on Monday. Our practices are at 2 o'clock. Tuesdays, our practices are at 2:30. So I'm willing to go Monday where we need it changed to get our hockey team on the ice and not just 6 players. Tuesdays, we'll run an optional practice. Okay, and that will help SAC and hopefully help us. Mondays were 2 o'clock, Tuesdays 2:30, makes it impossible for our players to practice. It makes it very hard, council, for us to recruit players. We have 2 16-year-olds that we had this past season. They both have committed other places. They're local boys, which is very upsetting. One of them is an NCAA commit, and they couldn't deal with only coming to 2 practices a week. So the schedule didn't work for them because they could not get out of school. So basically they would be there Wednesday, Thursday. So they've gone on to other programs. As I said earlier, it affects our recruiting. The league, the OJHL requests that we have 3 structured practices. And what that means is a team practice. We need a team out on the ice to develop. It's a pay-to-play league. So part of their declaration that they sign, we aren't even providing what the league is asking for because we're only giving them two structured practices as we speak. My coaching staff have jobs. They do this part-time. These are men with families, and it's impossible for them to be at practice for 1:30 to prepare at 1 o'clock. And that's why we need the time changed. I need my coaching staff there to develop our young boys. I spoke with the director, athletic director, Paul Bedard, to try and work this out before we came to you. And unfortunately, he said they couldn't do anything, and that was unfortunate. I was hoping that he could give up one of the days, seeing that over Monday and Tuesday, they have both ACC rinks booked in these times, along with their rink over at SAC. So over the 2 days, they have 6 sheets of ice where we don't have 1. As you guys all know, we have been part of the community for a long time. We need to keep the Aurora Tiger Junior A program running strong. The league is getting younger, which affects us fielding a team, and we need the practice times to do that. We're hoping, we need you to grant this request. As I said, I was gracious in not asking for both nights tonight and only asking for Mondays from 3:30 to 5. Tuesdays, we'll keep it as an optional practice from 2:30 to 3:30. That's what I got to tell you.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. First, council, can I get a motion to receive? Moved by Councillor Humphrey, seconded by Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions for the delegate? Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Jim, for being here tonight. Just a quick question. Historically, has it always been at 2 o'clock, the practices, and has this been an issue every year for many years now?
Yeah, so what happens is at the start of the season, we're 4 to 5, and then it switches, I believe, in November to the 2 o'clock practice because SAC, obviously their program kicks in. In the past, we've had older hockey teams. So 3 years ago, our 50-year anniversary team, most of our kids weren't in school, so it really didn't affect us. 2 years ago, we had an older team. Last year, we went young and more local, where we really saw, you know, in the 5 years I've owned the team, that last year was where I go, okay, this can't work, because we'd have 6 kids out at practice. So historically, if you have an older team, and a lot of the times the Aurora Tigers junior A team has been an older, more veteran team, and we've gone to a younger model, like I said, more local boys, and we need to make it work so our kids can get out of school, our coaches can get out of work and be there to run this program.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for bringing this concern forward, Jim. It's important for us to know that it's going on. We need to support the team. It's our Aurora Tigers. I'm sorry that you've had this challenge, and I'm hoping that we can, at the end of this, ask staff to see what we can do to accommodate as much as possible. I'd like to understand why we've got such an imbalance. It seems there's it looks like there's ice time at certain times where your organization doesn't have any and others have full. So I'd like to understand that a bit more when I ask staff. But thanks for bringing that forward, and
Thank you.
we can do something about it.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Is there any other comments or questions for the delegate? Seeing none. Jim, thank you very much for coming. We'll see what happens.
Okay, thank you very much for having me, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Council, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So next we have Mr. Greg Reed, Executive Director of Advancement at St. Andrews College. It's regarding the same issue, ice allocation policy. Mr. Reed, welcome.
Mr. Mayor?
Just to remind you, you have 5 minutes, and then after I will ask council if they have any comments or questions to your delegation. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Councilors, Mr. Mayor, my name is Greg Reed. I'm the Executive Director of Advancement at St. Andrews College. And that role essentially at the school involves alumni and parent relations, development, fundraising, et cetera. But there's a reason why I'm speaking to you today as opposed to others. So I moved to Aurora, the Aurora area in 1990, began teaching in York Region District School Board for 10 years. In 2000, I transitioned to St. Andrews College and was the athletic director for the first 12 years of my career there. And in that role, I booked all ice time, attended all the ice users meetings and so on. And then in 2012, I moved into the role of assistant headmaster, and our current athletic director, Paul Bedard, took over the athletic director role. It's important to note Paul is actually a graduate of the school in 1979. He's the son of former head Bob Bedard, who's an Aurora Sports Hall of Fame inductee. So we have a lot of history with Paul in that role in this situation. I also coach hockey and lacrosse, and I'm actually one of the coaches of the team that uses the ACC1 ice time on a daily basis during the hockey season. So just sort of as an overview, St. Andrews is a registered not-for-profit entity. We moved to the town of Aurora and the current site in 1926, and we have an annual operating budget of about 39 million. We employ 255 full and part-time staff year-round, and 72 of them live in Aurora. And when you add in SAC summer camp staff and independent contractors, our total employees numbers over 300. And we also have 260 students that live on campus 10 months of the year. The SAC community is further engaged in Aurora in a number of ways, including our leadership support for the Holiday Hero program as the host venue for the Sports Hall of Fame dinner, with significant annual contributions to various local charities, including Jumpstart, Yellow Brick House, Aurora Food Pantry, In From the Cold, 360 Kids, etc. So for over 90 years, St. Andrews and the town have enjoyed a mutually beneficial period of growth and success. So the St. Andrews Athletic Program is a very robust program. It fields 63 teams in 22 different sports, all of whom practice in that sort of 4 to 6 hour window after classes and before supper. And within that, we have 6 hockey teams. So that probably answers the councilor's question about ice sheets and so on. So we have, although we have a single pad arena, we have 6 hockey teams plus recreational and residential skating and hockey programs. So we still, it's still a necessity for us to have ice time in the town of Aurora, particularly in that 4 to 6 time block. Prior to building our own single pad, we were the 4th largest ice user in Aurora annually. Our varsity B senior team, which makes ACC their home, is a team that has 15 Auroran residents on it. And we occupy dressing room 6 alongside the Tigers. We've booked the same ice time slots for decades. In fact, the Monday 4 o'clock time slot at issue has been a staple in our program since the late 70s, when our current AD, Paul Bedard, was on the team. Because ACC1 has remained unchanged for decades for us, it serves as our home. And so in 2005, with the town's permission, we invested $47,000 in customizing dressing room 6 in a similar fashion to the Aurora Tigers room. And that said, we've willingly accommodated other user groups to use that room at various points, like the Aurora Skating Club and so on, for their annual show. We also book ACC2 on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, as Jim said, because we have our 2 U16 teams and U14 teams that play on that ice surface. That allows us to actually share a bus to and from the arena for all those practices. So we're able to put 2 teams onto a bus. And so any movement of our time slot or our location would double our busing costs on a move forward basis. Just in summary, we've consistently followed town and arena policies regarding requesting, contracting, and using ice time in Aurora. We always strive to be good, honest, and fair tenants of Aurora Ice Time. And at the same time, as you know, we provide significant ice time to York Simcoe, Aurora Minor Hockey, Central York Girls, and adult groups, etc., as well as field time, diamond, gym, pool, squash courts, theater rentals, etc., to various minor groups, sport and youth groups in Aurora. And in all cases, we consistently and fairly and respectfully try to adhere to our allocation and use policies, which we coincidentally modeled after the town. And so, you know, when it comes to the concept of grandfathering, which is in section 4 of the ice allocation policy, and states all ice permit holders will maintain their existing ice permit times on an annual basis until such time as we surrender them. We're asking for that same fair and respectful treatment from the town when it comes to our consistent and long-standing rental of facilities, and particularly of these time slots. We assume that the town has thoughtfully crafted, you know, policies to direct decision-making on these kinds of aspects, and we're simply requesting that the town continues to respect and follow its ice allocation policy, and thereby reject the petition by the Tigers to usurp that ice time that's been consistently used by us for over 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reid. Council, first can I get a motion to receive? Moved by Councillor Humphrey, seconded by Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions for Mr. Reid? Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Reid, for presenting. And so just to make it clear then, you guys are, you and the Tigers are essentially vying for the same ice time on the Monday at 3:30. Is that correct?
Sort of. So it's 4 to 5:30 that is the time slot that we have. Our classes end at 3:30. That's the same time slot we've had for over 40 years. As Jim said, the Tigers used to be an older team. When they were competing for the RBC Cup and winning the RBC Cup, they were an older team. Those kids didn't attend school or, were attending part-time or were in college. And so, their ice time as it is now was sufficient for their needs. The challenge is that they've become much younger and less competitive, albeit, but they've also had, dozens and dozens of owners over the years, and even more so on coaches. So they've had 9 head coaches in the last 5 years under Mr. Thompson's ownership. And with every new coaching change and with every demographic change of their roster, there's a different need. So, where 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock was fine for them before, now they're looking to move to 4 o'clock. And, one of the questions that could be asked is, why not 5:30? Why not after our time slot? Would that work for them? Mr. Thompson did approach us and we did look at this. There were 6 of our hockey coaches, our athletic director and our director of hockey, who all sat down over multiple days on emails and tried to find a way to try and help them and resolve it, because we're not looking to, be difficult in this scenario. But, we were not able to find a solution that fit with what they were looking for.
Councillor Kim?
Great. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Thank you. Is there, Council, any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Mr. Reid, thank you very much for coming and attending, and we'll let you know what happens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillors.
Council, all those in favor of receiving? Opposed? That carries. Council, now we have a written delegation from Ms. Leslie Jennings in regards to item R1. Mr. Clerk, since this is our first official written one, do we just motion to receive and just and ask for a vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would be motion to receive and refer the comments to item R1 on tonight's agenda. And you could also, unfortunately, the delegate obviously isn't here to answer questions, but there could be a discussion amongst council if need be.
Okay, thank you. So first, council, can I get a motion to receive and refer to item R1? Councillor Gallo, seconded by Councillor Kim. Are there any comments? Councillor Gardner?
As this is new, can it be read into the record? Delegate.
It's going to be in its whole in the record, and it's on the agenda as whole.
Okay, it's just that usually the public knows what the delegate is saying because the delegate is there speaking.
But the public will know it'll be in the minutes, Councillor.
I mean, in time for our discussion, or I guess they could look on the agenda. It's just, it's a different process.
I understand. If you want to read it, would you like to read it?
Oh, you can read it.
So why should I read it?
Okay, I'm not getting into this. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Consent agenda. Are there any comments, questions? Would anyone like anything pulled out of the consent agenda? Councillor Gardner.
Thank you. I'd like C1, C3, and C4, please, and also C5.
Councillor Gallo.
Minor pull, thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, council? Can I get a motion to receive C2 and C6? Moved by Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Humphreys. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. So we'll move to, well, we have no advisory committee meeting minutes. We'll move to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. We will start with C1. Councillor Gardner, you pulled this.
Mr. Mayor, we could do this now, but I'm thinking that the residents of Kitimat and the general area are probably waiting for us to discuss their motions, so the information, so perhaps we should start with that. Because that's an important item on the agenda. I'm at your pleasure, Mr. Mayor. I'm thinking the residents are watching this.
All right. Council, if there's no objections, we'll move R1 forward. So we'll start with R1. So Council, R1, capital project number 34626, sidewalk construction on Kitimat Crescent, proposed capital budget increase. Someone would like to put the recommendation on the floor. Moved by Councillor Kim, second, Councillor Gilliland. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. Oh, Councillor Gardner. Right under the bell.
Yeah. Well, this is, as we all know, this has been quite a discussed issue. And there were two views on this, one for a sidewalk, one against a sidewalk. In any case, now we have a motion asking us to increase the amount that we're spending on the budget. I'm really not going to speak to that. I'll let the rest of council speak to that. But I am concerned about several things that are in the report. In particular, that the way we have to build this sidewalk, it has to go right up against the street. There's no room for that grassed area that we usually have. And because of this, we're not going to meet the minimum standards from the Provincial Act under maintenance. And it also creates a lot of problems having the sidewalk right against the curb. There are potentially quite a lot of extra costs, and that's in the report, with respect to when the contractor does the curb cuts and the sidewalk, because they're right up against the road, there may be damage to the many things that are within the road system, including the catch basins and the valves and any other underground infrastructure. And we may damage it, we may not, but given how these projects often work, we have to be prepared. We may damage, and we may also need to replace some of this underground infrastructure. Under the liability legal opinion, it says because we're not meeting those standards, should there be a problem with somebody falling or an accident, and we're sued because of perhaps improper maintenance, which is going to be interesting, because where is the snow going to go from the sidewalk? It's going to go on the road. And we already know from the residents that this road is very late to be cleared. It's in our last tier of roads. We have that potential legal issue. I guess most important to me is the safety issue. We're doing the sidewalk so we can improve safety conditions. By having the sidewalk right up against the curb, we are removing what is known in some circles as the kill strip. The kill strip is there, so if a car comes up on the curb, there's protection for the pedestrian on the sidewalk. And to me, these are all very significant issues apart from money. That's all for now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland. I'm trying, Councillor. I'm going to ask you guys to unmute yourselves from now on, just to make
Yeah,
it
okay.
easier.
Can you hear
Thank
me?
you. Yes, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. I just had a question through you, Mr. Mayor, to, I guess, Mr. Waters. What is the setback that the town is allowed, that's property owned by the town
Mr. Waters?
from the curb?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's typically 6 meters. That's the municipal right of way.
Perfect. And
Councillor.
were there more homes on one side of the street than the other?
Mr. Waters?
Oh, I should do this. Sorry. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, on the northwest side of Kitimat, where the sidewalk is proposed, there are approximately 24 homes located there.
And the other side?
Through you,
Waters?
Mr. Mayor, 12.
Councillor?
Just a quick question about whether or not it would be more conducive to put the sidewalk on the other side so it's less onerous on the residents on the other side with all the curb cutting, and whether or not that would offset some of the costs, be a little less expensive, less intrusive with the residents as well. And it also does connect to the mailbox, which I think kind of makes sense. And forgive me if I'm mistaken, it would actually connect right up to the crosswalk where the crosswalk crossing guard would be standing. Could you shed some light on that possibility and whether or not that would make any sense?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I recall this conversation back in November of 2019, where we debated the east side versus the west side, and through our engineering group, the decision was made after looking at the topography and the constraints on the southeast side. There would be a retaining wall required. There are different grades on that side. There's also, I believe, a relocation required of a utility or a hydro box, transformer box. And I also believe there's some fencing issues on that side. Plus, I believe a hydrant would have to be relocated as well. So those are major constraints that basically contributed to the decision to locate the sidewalk on the northwest side. Oops.
Thank you. And okay, that really explains a lot as to why perhaps maybe we chose that side. Any idea how we are going to build the sidewalk where the hydro pole currently is, right on the corner of Kitimat and Aurora Heights? Is it going to go around somehow? It just seems to be right kind of in the spot where you would connect to the existing little curb cutout sidewalk that's kind of there now. And we're talking about having some other things that are hindering the other one side of the street, but yet we still have some of these same issues on the northwest side of the street. And I just kind of wanted to know how we're going to mitigate that. Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I haven't seen the design for that specifically. My understanding is that there are very little, if any, constraints on the northwest side of Kitimat. So I'm not really aware of how that hydro pole will be impacted, if at all, that you're speaking about.
Okay. All right, maybe that's something to discuss maybe offline and get a little more information about. Thank you.
Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little bit of similar questions to Mr. Waters. The section where it does say that the sidewalk is against the road, it does highlight a bit of a liability on the town side. Is that, I mean, from your professional perspective, is that something that I think is a good idea, or are we doing this because it's the sidewalk policy? Or, I just like your comments on having a sidewalk against the road. And the whole reason we're doing this is for safety's sake, right? This is the only reason we've pushed up the sidewalk project here.
Mr.
Would
Waters?
you have a comment on the safety aspect of that? Yeah.
Mr. Waters?
Oh, you're on mute.
I apologize. I can respond to some of your question. On the maintenance side, I'll defer to Mr. Downey from that perspective. But the whole reason why we pushed the sidewalk right up against the curb was to save on the driveways. As you recall,
Yeah.
that was a big issue that was raised by the residents back in November and probably even previous to that. So that's the reason why there's no kill strip, why there's no boulevard there. Our preference would have been to build a proper sidewalk in accordance with provincial standards, which does require a kill strip for snow storage as well as safety. So those are the reasons why the road has been, or the sidewalk has been pushed right up to the curb.
Counselor?
No, that makes sense. But again, I'm concerned about that. What about the snow removal? What do we do with that?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to let Mr. Downey respond to that.
Mr. Downey?
Good evening. It causes an issue, which is why we requested a statement in the report so that council was aware that we were going to have some difficulty meeting some minimum maintenance standards. As you can appreciate, we normally plow the snow from the road onto the what you call the kill strip or the boulevard, and then we do the same thing with the sidewalk. This time we're going to be plowing the snow onto the sidewalk and then plowing the snow off the sidewalk back onto the road. So we're going to have some difficulty addressing that, but we are going to do our very best to try to ensure that there is a clear sidewalk. It's just that it's going to take some additional work on our end.
Okay. No, that's good. I have another question, and it's not captured in the report through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if I can bring it up now, or maybe I'll wait for another go around here. But at the time of this whole discussion on safety, there was a separate initiative for a working group to look at an overall safety plan, which could have or could not have included the sidewalk and other precautions at the school. And I just wondered, is there an opportunity here to combine both the reports to come up with the top solution? I'm not suggesting the sidewalks aren't going to happen. They may move forward, but should we look at the full safety scope before we jump the gun here? There may be some really great ideas, and my discussion with Ms. Mihaela and Mr. Batts, who I met on site, and the discussion at the school level, there were some really great ideas, like far beyond the issue of sidewalk is here because of what's happening, pushed ahead because of what's happening at the school during drop off and pickup hours. But they've got some amazing solutions that can absolutely offload that whole situation. Where sidewalks will be nice, but there'll be barely an impact because of what I believe staff and the working group is working on. So I don't know how much we need to rush this forward. Do we have to have it going right away? Can we, we've waited a long time. Can we combine both those? So is there anyone here today that can perhaps, who may know an update on what's happening with that working group and when we're going to hear about the sort of the full rounded solutions for safety in the area?
Mr. Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Point of order. Sorry, Councillor Gallo. Go ahead. Point of order. Can you unmute yourself, Councillor Gallo? Thank you. Point of order.
I think Councillor Kim had it first, but I'm just going to say that the report is about the increase in the funding. We're not discussing the actual item here, and I assume Councillor Kim was going to do the same thing, but
sorry, I appreciate I didn't see Councillor Kim's, but point taken. I agree with that. So Councillor, I'm going to accept Councillor Gallo's point of order and agree with it. So I'll ask you to either move along to a different line of questioning or comments, or?
Sure,
pretty much
I'll,
you're done?
that's all I have for now. I just, again, from my perspective, I think we need to know the full picture. I know it's an increase in cost, but the increase in cost does worry me. And I just wondered about what could happen if the other report came through and what we could come up with, but I'll stop for now.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gallo, you're up next. Thank you, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm happy to open the discussion up at some maybe new business or something, but I just, to me, it's an issue of whether or not we increase or not. My question to, I guess, Mr. Waters, on page 2 of 7, 2 of 8, it speaks to the additional costs, and it says that as a precautionary measure, provisional extra work was included in the request for tender in order to cover the cost of replacing or repairing of the underground infrastructure during construction if required. And then later on down the page, it speaks to the bid submission closed on March 6th, exceeded the project's approved budget by 100,000, which was established based on previous similar works undertaken by the town. Sorry, where am I reading here? The next paragraph down. As a precautionary measure, I assume that's referring to the extra work. The capital budget was increased in order to cover the cost of provisional work for extra involving replacement and repairing of existing curbs and catch basins, which to me is different than underground infrastructure. Maybe I can get some clarity on that.
Mr. Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's essentially one and the same. You know, if you go to table 2 on page 4, we actually list in the middle table the items that comprise the overage that we're asking for, and they include, you know, catch basins, they include the manholes, water valves, some additional grading work. It's a bit of a catch-all in terms of calling it underground infrastructure instead of essentially itemizing it. So that's how it's described generally.
Councillor?
Thank you, and through you to Mr. Waters again. So if, is it fair to say that that 55,000, so a big chunk of the additional cost is due to work that we wouldn't normally do if we're putting in sidewalks? We're there, we're taking advantage of the fact we're there, and we're gonna deal with some of these other issues. Is that fair?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The optional extra work is there in case through the construction of the sidewalk, some of the infrastructure is malfunctioning or it's not working properly. We wouldn't change it for the sake of changing it. So only if it needs to be changed is the requirement to is for what the money is essentially designed to be spent for. I should just add, sorry, if I could just add, sir, Mr. Mayor, in addition, a lot of the sidewalk reconstructions are part of larger projects that, you know, are in addition of $1 million or so. And so some of these costs would be absorbed as part of that process. Because this is a sidewalk and only a sidewalk, we felt it was appropriate to identify at this point in time some additional works that could potentially be required.
Councillor?
Yeah, I'm just trying. I mean, I'm trying to understand why we separate it out and consider it extra work, and trying to nail down whether, if we were only replacing a sidewalk, this extra work may not have been necessary. But as a fact that we're going in, we're going to do this work as well. I think that's what I heard, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Mr. Waters, what portion of the extra cost is due to the boulevard restructuring or the curb cutting?
Mr. Waters?
To you, Mr. Mayor. Well, it's really due to the construction of the sidewalk. So whether the sidewalk is, placed next to the curb or set back, that may, you may not have any issues at all with any kind of replacement of this infrastructure. It's just a fail-safe to allow for us or the contractor to undertake the work should it be required, because we don't want to build a sidewalk and then have infrastructure that is faulty or needs to be replaced.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you. Because I think, in other words, I think you're confirming what I thought was that, a good chunk of the additional costs is the curb cutting, HST, and contingency, which is, contingency and HST, that's par for the course. They're normally not considered from my experience in the original budget. And so I know it's scary to have a bigger number like that, but it seems like a good chunk of that is anticipated, and a good chunk of that is to assist residents who might want to broaden their driveway, which in any event is assisting residents. So I guess all this is to say that I'm not as concerned about the larger price tag, because it's all there to accommodate residents, and as well as its contingency and HST, which is par for the course. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Thompson?
Through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, when we discussed this back in November, the conversation primarily centered around whether to have or have not a sidewalk. But if my memory is correct, we never talked about the fact that that sidewalk may have to be flush against the curb. That's really something that's come out of the further investigation of the design. And really, tonight's report is the first time that council's learning that sidewalk, to minimize disruption, has to be flush against the curb. Is that correct?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I think generally that is correct. We took in serious consideration the input of the residents about impact to driveways. So what we undertook through the design process is to try to mitigate as much as possible the driveways and protect for the parking of cars within them, which is why it was pushed right to the edge of the curb.
Thank you. And thank you. And I appreciate staff trying to find a solution that works all around. But, I do share Councillor Gartner's concerns about reading in the report that it doesn't meet standards, and that it does pose a greater risk for us than, say, a regular sidewalk. During my time on council, we've approved many reports, both capital and operational, on the basis of safety and meeting standards. And not doing that in this case does concern me. Even though I'd like to see a sidewalk there, I don't like the idea of we setting precedents here. Back in 2013, some of us on council will remember that we passed the master transportation study, and within that study was our sidewalk policy, and it also identified all the gaps in the town. And coincidentally, Kitimat was identified in that 2013 report as having a sidewalk gap, and a plan was to install a sidewalk. But there were also many other streets that were identified in that sidewalk gap. And I guess my concern is that, are we setting a precedence tonight whereby future sidewalks that will be installed to address these gaps may also be put flush against the curb? And then again, add to the risk to the town. And so, while I'm supportive of a sidewalk, I'm not sure I'm supportive of putting it flush to the curb and deviating from the norm, even though I understand that it's an imposition to the residents.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gartner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I was advised by staff that I could do an amendment if it had to do with financial concerns. And the delegation is addressing that. And with respect to this being an order or not, our discussions around this issue, the residents submitted a delegation with respect to many of these points, and it was accepted by staff. So I think that we can go outside of what this report says and discuss the issue generally, because that's what the delegation did and we accepted it. In any case, the homeowners on Kitimat are making a couple of points. And Councillor Thompson referred to one of them. We have a policy. We ask the residents if they want a sidewalk. And 36 out of the 40 homeowners on Kitimat said no. That's part of our policy, I believe. It used to be that we had to request people who wanted a sidewalk to come to council. The resident would also like to know, staff has suggested a safety improvement, which was a no parking restriction sign on the curb on Kitimat. They're also saying that the committee, and I think Councillor Humphreys is kind of talking to this, is requesting a lay-by to be set up. So there's a lot more pieces to this puzzle. And with respect to, I'm looking at liability. I mean, it's very clear to me, although the wording is done very carefully, that if we're not going to uphold provincial standards and something happens, we're at risk. Now, it may not happen. The report isn't saying that. It may not happen. But if it does, if somebody falls on the sidewalk or there's an accident and we don't have this grassed area, that could be an issue. If someone falls on the sidewalk because they say that we haven't cleared off the snow properly. I mean, Mr. Downey put it very well. We're clearing the snow off the sidewalk onto the road and then back onto the sidewalk. I mean, I really think we need to do more work on this. I know Councillor Humphreys has a motion that she wanted to bring forward, but there's too many problems. And apart from the money, and to the other point that was made, because we're working so close to the road, like we may actually damage the infrastructure. That is what staff is saying. It's a possibility. So it's not just GST that we're adding and to convenience the curb cuts. There's a whole lot of issues here. And I can't see that spending this extra money is going to make the residents any safer. And it makes us unsafe because of the liability issue. And I do have an amendment to the motion when it's appropriate, Mr. Mayor, about the financial component.
You can go ahead and put your amendment now if you'd like, Councillor.
Okay, the residents are saying, I mean, due to no fault of their own, doing, because they're caught in this strange place that they're really not, we're not really doing our sidewalk policy, but we're kind of doing it. They would like us to set up a grant of, it depends how many homeowners there are who want this, of $24,000 to be added to, if we go through with this, to the capital project, so that there can be a grant to the properties to widen. They would like it to be 6.5 meters. So I will put forward that amendment on their behalf. It's really very little money relative to everything. If anybody would like to second that.
Anybody like to second that? Say, oh, Councillor Humphreys would like to second that. Mr. Clerk, did you get that amendment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this would be the second amendment from the written delegation tonight. Is that correct?
What was the first one?
The first one had to do with driveway widenings.
Yes.
Yes.
Although, did I just put that forward as well?
No, it's just the second amendment about a 2000.
Okay.
We'll do word for word for the second amendment, is our understanding, and we'll put that up on the screen in just a second.
Thank you. Councillor, would you like to start speaking to the amendment?
Yes, I would.
Well, go ahead.
We're trying to take care of all of our residents, and in the process, excuse me, we've caused a lot of stress to residents who are having a sidewalk that's really, according to our policy, on the wrong side of the street. And if this was 2032, what would have happened as it happened on my street, we would have slightly realigned the road, and then people on both sides of the street would have lost some property. We wouldn't have put it all onto one side of the street residents. And there's some seniors involved here who don't have the money. And on top of that, and I told the residents it's a hard time for the town because of COVID. But it's a hard time for them too. And without meaning to, we've put them in this situation. So I would like, hopefully council will consider that amendment.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions to the amendment? Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Typically, and I know I spoke to you about a little bit about this today as well, Mr. Mayor, that certainly don't want to set precedent. This can happen on many occasions, and other residents would feel well, you know. But in this particular case, I think what I'm struggling with, and just talking to the amendment, is when we initially talked about Kitimat, the original proposal that came forward, we voted against sidewalks, and then it came back on the table. We had some no sidewalks, but we'll come back with a plan, a safety plan to address what's happening at the school. Then there was a motion brought forward and we went, yes, we need sidewalks there. So I feel that the residents in this particular case didn't get the opportunity that we would normally host. That's just, you know, I mean, we make these decisions, we do what we need to do. I believe you're right, safety is number one, it's paramount. And we need to absolutely look after our residents' safety. And I feel that in this case that if there's an opportunity to help the residents out, I am concerned about shortening the distance. And those, like if you do walk around the area, it would be a real problem to shorten the sidewalks, allowing for boulevards, you know, on both sides. It would just be a really horrific situation. May not even be enough room for one car park. So we're in a tight situation. But for me right now, I think, you know, if we just make it clear that this is something that's just in particular sort of what happened here, my thoughts is it's a little bit different, and that just the timing of all this, sort of a difficult time for all of us. Many people aren't working. So for residents that could at one point afford the money to implement this and do their allow paving to be done, can't do it this year just for those reasons. So this is why I see this as an exception if we do allow this to move forward. That's all, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphrey. Councillor Gallo, to the amendment. Sorry, Councillor Gallo, I hit the button too.
Okay. If someone could help me, I'm a little unclear as to what's being asked. I read the explanation, and so we're installing sidewalk at the end of the driveway adjacent to the curb. Any patching of current driveways would be our responsibility, and we would do the appropriate work. Is it being asked to pay for an additional driveway for?
Councillor, I would, and Councillor Gardner can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is this is for us to put funds forward to help to pay to widen those existing driveways for the residents, instead of them paying for their portion to widen it. But
We're not asking anybody to widen their driveway, are we? Because of this.
We're not asking, no.
No one has to widen their driveway as a result of sidewalks. Is that right?
I would say correct, but Mr. Waters can answer that. Mr. Waters, are we asking the residents to widen their driveways? Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we are proposing to do through the contractor is just perform curb cuts. That's all we're doing. Any restoration work that is required, should something, be damaged by the contractor would be taken care of by the contractor, but it's just for curb cuts. That's it.
Councillor?
So I guess maybe I'm guessing somebody can correct me. Maybe this has come about as a result of us shortening their driveway and therefore removing a part
Yes.
they would normally have, and therefore they would have to create they currently have a tandem and they would have to create a side by side, and because of that they're asking for us to pay for it. Is that what's happening?
I think pretty much.
Okay. I think we're setting a precedence. I'd like to hear others. I think it's setting a precedence because this is probably not the only time this has happened. But I'd like to hear from others.
Thank you, Councillor Gallo. Councillor Thompson, to the amendment, please.
You know, I share the concerns that Councillor Gallo raised with setting a precedent. I mean, as I referenced earlier, we do have a sidewalk gap policy. There are many spots within Aurora where we still have to install a sidewalk. And I guess the argument would be the same every time, that anytime you install a sidewalk on a property, you are theoretically going to shorten their driveway. And so in future, those property owners may look to the decision made tonight as justification for us to help pay for their widenings as well. And so while, you know, I'm sympathetic to the struggles that are going on right now and the added costs of doing so, I don't think the town should be setting a precedent, so I won't be supporting the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Anyone else for the first time? Before I go back to Councillor Gardner? Oh, Councillor Kim, go ahead to the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And you know, my view is along the same lines as Councillor Gallo and Councillor Thompson with regard to the precedent. And throughout the town, there are a lot of projects that go on, whether it be for safety issues or road improvement issues. In particular, there are a lot of projects that we do in front of businesses. It compromises their ability to draw on revenue during the time or during the course of the project. Not once has the town, and even in regional projects, the region doesn't, in my memory, have ever compensated businesses for the inconvenience for road improvements. And again, you know, I'm certainly empathetic to the situation here. This is, you know, however, at the end of the driveway, which was used for parking, is town-owned land, and those are those boulevards and that setback area are used for improvement, safety, and other aspects that are deemed necessary. So I would not be in support of the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gilliland, did you want to go one time before I go back to Councillor Gardner? No? Okay. Councillor Gardner, second time.
I'm always very concerned about precedents, but this is a very unusual situation. We have a policy that when we redo a road, if there isn't a sidewalk, we add the sidewalk. And we do it fairly. We realign the road so that people on one side of the street lose some property, people on the other side lose some property. Nobody's really happy, but nobody's really angry. We are completely going outside of that policy. And we are putting a sidewalk in 12 years before we're going to reconstruct the road. And by doing this, we are really disadvantaging some of our residents. This is at absolutely no fault to them. And they have to do this widening because, I mean, you know, I'm thinking all of you on council, come home, you park your two cars in the driveway, you go inside. Well, they used to be able to do that. Now, because of what we are doing, and it's a very unusual situation, so I can't see how it would set a precedent. I really hope we don't do anything like this again. We're causing this problem. And they're asking for our help because they want to be able to park 2 cars in their driveway. It's very, very simple. And it is not a precedent issue. It is an issue that we haven't followed our policy.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments to the amendment? I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That fails. Back to the main motion. Councillor Gardner, you had the floor for your second time. You still have some time left.
Mr. Clerk said that there was another motion about they would like to widen their driveways by 6.5 feet. Although it's only 6 feet is permitted, and in some cases, it's complicated. I mean, they would like to widen their driveways by 6.5. And I might have meters and feet wrong here. I'm not sure where I'm at, but I say we allow it.
So
We're
are
not-
you talking
we're
about the
not
First Amendment that they asked is that all properties affected by the sidewalk installation on Kitimat Crescent be permitted to widen their driveways to a maximum of 6.5 meters regardless of the actual frontage of their lots? Is that the
Thank
one
you.
you're speaking of?
That's the one that I'm speaking of. And also, in
If that's the one
doing,
you're speaking of, I'm actually going to rule that out of order. I don't believe it is
Why?
in order because if the amendment was to be carried, it would contravene the town zoning bylaw, and amendments and
Yeah.
variances to the town zoning bylaw have provincially regulated procedures in place before they can be granted, and council's not able to amend the bylaw or provide a variance by amending the report on the agenda.
then may I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that when they all go to the Committee of Adjustment, that our planning staff writes a letter to the Committee of Adjustment, well, they do a report, and grant them this, because it is the Committee of Adjustment. You're right, it's the Committee of Adjustment who can do this. So I'm hoping council will be supportive and help them, and that the planning staff will send information to the Committee of Adjustment. You're right, it
Thank you.
is out of order. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim, a second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did see in the report that the sidewalk was going to be abutting the street. I don't recall in prior reports that that was going to be the case. Now, for you to Ms. Cesario, now this is all about liability, and we talked about if we go ahead as planned, then there's a liability issue. But we already discussed in the previous general committee that there's a liability issue by not having a sidewalk. So it's just a matter of which is the greater liability, not having a place to walk safely, or the risk of having a sidewalk that doesn't have the necessary setbacks or the standard setback that we're used to. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Serio, from a town liability perspective, is there less liability by having a sidewalk, or does it matter at all?
Mr. Saria?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I'd be able to answer that question. I don't think it would matter at all. Ultimately, it would depend on what the claim is, what the circumstances are, and what a court would decide. But it could be both, equally liable, is what I mean.
Councillor?
Okay. And, it certainly makes it a tougher decision, although that's not the decision that is before us today. My view is that having a sidewalk is better than, or even if it's a non-conforming sidewalk, it's better than having, than not having anything at all. It would have been nice to have a more legal confirmation of that, so that we 100% know with some level of legal comfort that it's the right decision. But I think, just from an optical point of view, it would seem to make sense that having a sidewalk is better than not having a sidewalk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Humphries, second time. and then I got Councillor Gallo. Oh, Councillor Humphries, one sec. There you go.
Sorry. Thank you. Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just to go back to the sidewalks abutting the road, I know we have others in town. There's one by the Tim Hortons there at Golf Links in Yonge Street. It's wide. I haven't heard of any issues. In terms of that, just to you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, do you know of others? I'm sure we have others in town. It's not the preferred type of sidewalk, but given the circumstance, if we're going to move forward in the and what we've provided these people, I mean, what we're imposing on these residents in terms of, you know, the parking spots that are going to be missing and the other issues that will be caused, I think that for personally is the best scenario if we're going to move forward with this evening. But through Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, we have other sidewalks like this through town, right? I don't know if it's a high percentage, but.
Mr. Waters, are you aware of other sidewalks?
Through you.
Wellington is one.
through you, Mr. Mayor. Seeing that I'm not that familiar with sidewalks within the town, I would like to defer that question to Mr. Downey, since he does plow the sidewalks.
Mr. Downey? And I'll throw in, I believe there's some in the Heritage District as well, but that might be slightly different due to the heritage aspect. Mr. Downey?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, you just stole my thunder. You're correct. It does happen. Catherine Avenue is a good example of that, but that creates us some difficulty. So it's not something that we would like to see repeated. I certainly understand the issues related to Kitimat. We just want to make sure that council's aware of all the nuances with regards to constructing adjacent to the curb. But we do have those instances in other areas of the town, and it does cause us some concern with regards to maintenance. But as I said earlier, we're going to do our best to make sure that we keep that sidewalk and the road clear.
Mr. Downey, Councillor?
Thank you so much. And just in terms of just looking at, I'm not as quick as Councillor Thompson, but I did look back at a report, and this flush sidewalk was evident in a report on PDS 19-0-001. So it's not the first we've heard of it. It's just probably the first that we're kind of acknowledging and understanding that this is actually coming to fruition. But so, Mr. Mayor, again, you could probably count me out of line here, but I'm really hung up, and maybe it's just perhaps my involvement with the initial issue of the safety concerns at the school, which I do not believe is going to. This sidewalk is actually, yes, it's going to provide some safety measures for sure. It's absolutely not going to get rid of the safety concerns at the school. Those are going to still exist, and there's still going to be a really bad concern. I spoke to the principal there. I spoke to our representative at the York Region School Board, who we know, Mr. McRoberts. I spoke to some the secretaries that work there, and they are very concerned, and we're looking forward to this working group, which I know that Ms. Michaela is ready to come forward soon.
Councillor, I'm going to stop you before someone calls a point of order again on you.
Can I do can I refer this back to come back with the other report? So it's a fulsome report. I don't want to stop this from happening. I don't, I just want the fulsome report to say, yes, sidewalks, yes, safety, because this has come about due to the school safety pickup and drop off. This isn't sidewalks because people want them. It's because of the safety at drop off and pickup, not during the day, not outside of school hours. It's those two particular times that are very dangerous. And yes, the sidewalks will help, but I do not believe it's going to address the concerns that are happening there every day. And there's significant changes, that will cause such a relief to the schools and to the parents that having this sidewalk will be nice, but what they're going to do is going to be massive difference. If what I heard back 6 months ago is able to come to fruition. So I'm just asking if a referral back to come back to us would be something the council would like to see. So the full
you're asking to put a motion to refer.
A motion to refer back, to come back. This report doesn't have to change at all, but to add the working group report to it. So we have the big picture. We could still probably move forward with this, but understanding what the other half of it is. And I just wondered if council would like that.
Would someone like to second that? Councillor Gardner. A motion to refer. Any comments or questions? Do you want to, can you just lower your hands? I got you guys marked down for the previous. If you want to take them down and put them back up for this one. Councillor Thompson, go ahead.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I guess my first is through you to Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, this is part of our procurement process. How long would the vendor be willing to hold the pricing on this tender? Do you know?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to let Rachel respond to that. She deals with procurement, so she can give you the actual amount of time that's required.
Okay. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the current bid is set to expire on June 2nd. We could ask all bidders to extend their bids, but again, there's no guarantee that the bidders will extend, but we could ask them to extend it if that's the direction council asks us to proceed with.
Councillor?
Great. And then I guess just as a follow-up question, through you to Mr. Waters, the report that Councillor Humphreys is referring to, would it be possible to bring that to the council meeting at the end of this month so that we could then deal with everything at the same time, or would you require more time?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we scheduled that for June 2nd GC, where we'll bring forward the plan for providing safety at Aurora Heights.
So
Councillor?
in other words, to meet Councillor Humphrey's request, if we were to refer this back to staff, then this item would be placed on the June cycle outside of the date for the tender, and we'd have to hope that those that bid on it would hold their pricing.
That'd be correct, Councillor Thompson.
Then I guess my third question would be back to Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel. Would there be an opportunity to reach out to them and get an answer before our council meeting at the end of this month, whether or not they would extend that bid a bit?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we would be able to do that. If we were to go out with an extension, we'd have to go out to all vendors that bid on this procurement.
Councillor?
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo, to the amendment or to the motion to refer.
Yeah, I'm in sync with Councillor Thompson, and if the timing works, I have no issues. I don't know if Mr. Councillor Thompson is in sync with this part, but I have no issues with deferring this to get both reports provided. It doesn't cost any more, and the tenders can be extended, the price maintained and extended. And I suspect from the answer, it can wait to our council meeting in this month to figure that out, and then we can make a final decision there whether to defer it or we're forced to make a decision.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no problems with referring for more information, but if Councillor Humphreys stated that that report that she's wants to bring back to GC is not going to have a material impact on this particular item regarding the budget and the go or no go of the sidewalk, then I wonder what the point of deferment is. If it's just getting the information, we can get that information as informational next for the next cycle. We can still move ahead with this. So I'm just wondering whether, the only reason why I consider that Councillor Humphreys wants to include this report is that it may sway some of our minds. We can always change our minds, but so I just want to get that correct. Whether is it going to disclose some additional information that may sway our minds, or if it's just information only, then it shouldn't really have an impact on this particular item.
Do you want Councillor Humphreys to answer that?
Sure.
Councillor Humphreys, I'll allow you to answer that.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. And Councillor Kim, no, I don't think it's a matter of dissuading or overturning this decision. Absolutely not. I just think it would provide a valuable perspective on from my discussions with staff, what safety measures would be like the most impactful. You know, it may come back sidewalks #1, but it may come back as, you know, these different changes will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and the sidewalks may be lower. There's also a discussion I'm sure we're going to have is splitting the budget between ourselves and the district school board. That is not going to come free. So there may be, you're right, there may be discussions, and we look at the whole picture. You know, is the sidewalk our #1 priority, or is this other? Again, at the end of the day, it's safety for the school children's pick up and drop off. That's the only reason I thought I'd bring it forward. I mean, I certainly don't, if the sidewalks come back #1, let's do it. I don't even want to hear about it again. But I just know, and I feel like I've done an injustice to council and the residents, because when we spoke about the safety measures before this sidewalk motion came forward, I inadvertently was to ask that the budget for the sidewalks were to be put forward to help with the costs of the new safety measures, to hopefully be split with the school board or the majority on the school board. And because of that, there's no budget for this other safety measure at all that we have planned in our capital budget. So I know that for a fact. It was my disservice. I didn't make sure that we did that. I thought we did. We spoke about it, but it wasn't actually in the motion. So yes, I think it's going to do a few things. It's going to provide an overall view of what the safety concerns are, the biggest, hopefully the biggest right plan for safety for our children and parents, grandparents dropping off, pickup, and thirdly, it's, you know, what do we do first, second, third in terms of the right things to do. And so I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know how that's going to look, but I just wondered if there is no impact to, you know, if we're going to ratify this at the end of the month anyway, and there's no delay, if the vendors, you know, I guess I'm thinking if the report can come to us before the end of the month. If it can't, then you're right, we're going to have to make sure that the vendors that have bidded will stick to their prices. So that's some work that staff will have to go back and decide. So really, that's what it is, Councillor Kim. It's not to dissuade or change or overturn this. It's just to get the full picture. But if this is council's will, if that doesn't require it, if you don't feel like that, that's fine too. I would love this, the big picture for me.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you. And, you know, when this was, when Councillor Humphreys and the working group initially was considered last year, that was considered to be something that would be complementary to the overall safety protocol and process for that whole neighborhood. It wasn't going to be sidewalk is one separate issue, and the school frontage and the parking and all that is another. But it's one complete. It's a holistic solution that's needed, but that they're complementary and that they should be treated separately. Because the sidewalk, after all, is part of our sidewalk policy. You know, that said, if there's any new information, I'm totally, there's no point in rushing it. I'm always, I think it's always great to have more information if new information comes up. We've been discussing this for several years now, so I'm just a little bit wary to continue to prolong this. If staff can, you know, get us the information before the end of this cycle, I'm fine with that. Or if we're able to, if Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel is able to confirm that this process won't be further delayed and the cost will not increase, and they're open to holding off for another month, I'm okay with that too.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. I don't mind deferring this back to staff. Quite frankly, I'm not really sure I like the proposed design in general. I've had some questions about whether or not which side of the street it should be on. Apparently there's some grading issues, but then we're also faced with other infrastructure issues with the side that's being proposed on, and maybe what we are being presented isn't the best solution. And this does give us an opportunity to look at what the working group input does offer. And again, I agree with Councillor Humphreys. This is about the safety of the children that are going to the school. And maybe there is a different solution where it is on the other side for just part of the way where most of the people will be driving and dropping off their kids. That would connect to the mailbox, to the crosswalk. And maybe that's really the only place that a sidewalk would go. I'm just not 100% on what's being proposed in this. I think this allows us to give us some time to kind of make sure that we do it right, because this is a pretty big invasion on property owners' properties and what we're doing with the curbs and the driveways and everything else. And we really need to make sure that if that is the road that we're going to be going down, then we're making the right decision for the safety of the town. And especially if it's not even compliant, you know, what ball are you weighing as far as safety? Is it good or is it not good for the residents on the street or community? So I'm good at deferring this to staff and getting a little more information on this.
Thank you, Councillor. I just got Councillor Gardner. Go ahead.
Comes back. Could we have an opinion on the liability issue? I'm thinking that a provincial policy about a standard would trump our sidewalk policy, but I'd like to know if that's true or not.
Mr. Sarah?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, in general, provincial policy would trump a municipal policy. But at the same time, these are, if you're talking about the minimum maintenance standards,
yes,
they're really guidelines that council has then incorporated into their own policies.
Okay.
And it's not that one is greater than the other. The municipal maintenance standards, sorry, the minimum maintenance standards are more used as a defense when we do go to court with this issue. And so that it's a greater chance of a municipality not being found liable if they do follow their minimum maintenance standards.
And also possibly if you can find any information on the lack of that protective strip. We've done it at least a couple of times, I think, on Mary and Algonquin, but this is an area where kids are walking to school. So, and again, it's safety issues. So I would think that not having that boulevard strip could be an important factor. Thank you. If you could just see if there's any information on that.
Mr. Sarah, did you want to say something?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, actually I did. I will do my best to look for any case law,
Okay.
but a lot of times personal injury claims settle out of court. So then we wouldn't know what the settlement is or what even happened with the cases. But we will definitely look into it and try to find some cases on it.
Do your best. Thank you.
Thank you. I just had a quick question for Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, if this does end up coming back June 2nd, they decide to hold the pricing, that means council would not make a ratified decision until the end of June. Would that possibly interfere with construction timelines?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We were hoping to start construction after the school year ended, which would have been the end of June, early July. There's still early June would likely be the last opportunity to get into the ground and be finished before September, because it's about a 4 to 6 week period for construction and cleanup and everything else. So the intent of getting it before you today was to move forward with the tender documents and get them signed, the contracts, everything else. So we'd be ready to go for the first week in July.
So it could possibly affect the construction timeline
It
to get
could,
it ready for the school year.
Yes, it potentially could, because then you'd have to go to council. We'd go to the end of June for council, and then it would take us a month to get the contract signed and all the insurance and everything else. So it would be a very tight construction schedule if we did that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gallo, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to, I'm not sure which staff is involved in this additional group. I'd like to know if they are here. I'd like to hear from them in terms of their opinion on the potential impact of whatever is going to come out of this group that may have on implementing these sidewalks.
Mr. Waters, I believe that's ANCA is going
That's
to be
correct.
dealing with that.
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. What I can advise you at this point is that the work with the school board has assumed a sidewalk on Kitimat. So what we'll bring forward is that's part of the safety solution, in addition to some other things such as a lay-by in front of the school as well. So I just want to confirm that we do, the options we're looking forward to presenting to you do include the sidewalk.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, is it your opinion that when that report comes, it won't necessarily be recommending not to build the sidewalks?
Through Mr. Mayor, that is correct.
Mr. Councillor?
Thank you. I'm willing to wait till council meeting, and at that time make a final decision based on what staff have come up with.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm in agreement on that. I don't mind waiting till council at the end of this month. But I think that at that point, we'll probably need to make a decision. Councillor Gardner? Oh, did you put your hand down? Did you want to speak a second time? Go ahead.
I may be the third. Thank you for acknowledging me. I think it is my third. But
I'd say you're second to the referral. It'd be your third to the main motion if we went back.
I mean, we've done special council meetings before. We could also have a special council meeting on June 2nd. It's within our ability.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you. Councillor Humphreys. Yes, second time. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Can we see if that report can come to us by the end of the month?
Well, then, Councillor, I would argue we've discussed this many times about process. It would be coming directly to a council meeting, and I think that everyone would prefer that it comes to a GC before it goes straight to a council to give the public an opportunity.
Sure, sounds good.
And I think Councillor Gallo would nod his head yes to that.
Understood.
Thank you. So, and I would just add, the only opportunity would be is if it could come back next week, and I don't think staff, that's a quick turnaround for them to have a report ready for us next week for something that they were expecting to have ready for June 2nd. So, okay. So I will not see any other comments or questions. I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right. We will move back to C1. Capital close report. Councillor Gardner, you asked for this one to be pulled.
And 15 and 23. I'd like some explanations. There's a lot of money left in those projects, and why is that?
Councillor, can I get a motion on the floor? Are you gonna
move the motion?
Thank you. Second. Councillor Thompson. Okay, go ahead, Councillor. Which ones were those again?
1.13, 15, and 23. They're all quite significantly different from the budget approval. I'd like to know why.
What page is that on, Councillor? For all of us?
Page 12, I believe.
So these are, which was, sorry, 31, which one did you say again?
No, it was section 13, the playground came in, we budgeted 125,000 and we paid 32,600. And the explanation is interesting. We got something at cost because they had an extra one. So are we saying that the cost of a playground that we're budgeting $125,000 for is 33,000? Are we paying that kind of a markup?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Mayor, this went out to a competitive bid process. So this contractor was able to underbid everybody else because he had an extra playground. So whether he did it at cost or even below cost, I'm not aware. It was a public tender. It was a good bid, and we were happy to take a lower price.
And we're
Counselor?
happy to get, and we're happy to get it, but it does say in the explanation that they gave it to us at cost. So it doesn't have to be answered now, but I'm hoping we're not paying a markup. It's close to $100,000. I'm hoping we're not paying a markup every time we buy a playground. The next one is 1.15.
Okay. Reconnection on Bathurst and Orchard Heights.
So all the money's left. There's an explanation, but I would like to know why. Why would it have been in our budget if we didn't need it?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this was a abandoned water main on Bathurst Street. It was a regional project. The region was to do this job. It was being paid for by the region. We came up with a solution that didn't require the decommissioning of that line. And so therefore we didn't need to move forward with the project, and the region didn't need to spend the $70,000.
Well,
Counselor?
that's great for us. Thanks, Mr. Danny. 1.23.
Yeah. ACC Auditorium?
Yeah, again, it's talking about finishes were revised. I mean, when these things are given to council and we're putting aside a budget, I just need an explanation. Why didn't we know about this when we got our budget?
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This item was prepared by a former management team member.
Okay.
As you may remember, we had a couple of changes in our management team. With a revised plan, we were still able to achieve the upgrade to that facility. If you've been in it since, it certainly is much improved from the look. But definitely the materials had changed. And we found when we originally quoted it or estimated on the materials that were originally planned, it was well over budget. So we felt that there was still a way to achieve the ultimate outcome by pursuing the revised materials of flooring, walls, and curtains that were updated in that site.
Thank you. I'm thinking your answer is going to be the same for 1.24 and 1.25.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Ms. McDougall?
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, for the Sarp pool pumps, originally previous management wanted to have pumps as a backup. It was not part of life cycle related. It was an emergency measure. However, council, if you may recall, in the last budget approved an emergency fund, part of our budget that we can use for projects that similar to this, to deal with the unexpected in a calendar year. So instead of trying to plan what items we think and be predictive of what we think we're going to need, that emergency fund council approved provides us some flexibility, although minor, but flexibility in trying to approve assets such as this. So we wanted to return those funds to the original source. And then in 20,
sorry, Ms. McDougall.
So just to finish on 125, replacement of overhead doors and operators. Originally, the building condition assessment suggested it. However, we did have it assessed, and based on the current state, the recommendation from the consultant and inspector suggested it has a little more life in it. So we are deferring the action of replacing those at this time. So you will see this item come back up on our 10-year capital plan as we are just delaying it, knowing that we can manage what we have.
That's great
Counselor?
news. That's great news. Thank you. I'll just finish this section 1.27. We budgeted $50,000 for the corporate energy management plan and we spent 15,000. That's a big difference.
Mr. Waters?
I mean, the answer can come next week. Or sorry, next meeting.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe we did get some senior level funding for that project. So that may be a reflection of the money that we received from those sources. But I can have a more robust answer for you at the next GC.
Thank you.
Counselor?
The last two in this section are 131 and 132. Water,
Mr. Downey.
wastewater, sewer.
Mr. Downey, why did you save us so much money?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you?
I'll try to do better. Just bear one second, please.
And Mr. Mayor, if I could just say,
Yes.
underestimating and overestimating, they're both equally not good for our budget. So it's not a matter of saving money. It's a matter of why is there a difference from the budget that we approved?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, on 131, I'm sorry, but I'd have to ask staff for an explanation. It talks about some items were eliminated, but I'd like to be more specific with council as to which those items are. With regard to the maintenance of the culverts in Young and Batson, completed and closed. Once again, I can get back to council. It doesn't say why. I assume it was a contracted cost, but and so we got a lower contract, but I can find out.
Thank you. And when we get these pending item reports, any more complete information would be good. And then I wouldn't have to waste council's time, perhaps. I know council loves when I ask questions. That's what I have for now. I'll give someone else a chance. I have some others.
Councilor Gallo? Councilor Gallo? Oh, you're on. We did it again. Sorry. There you go.
Are we good? Okay.
Yeah,
Just
we're good.
first of all, some just general comments. These items, as we know, are information items, and we choose to have them on the agenda or not, and one or more of us can ask for them to be on a GC. I can let you know from now on, I probably will be asking for everyone to be on a GC because there's a lot to the community to see,
Right.
particularly this one that's before us, as opposed to finding it in some part of the website. Not to mention that it wouldn't have been, and I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, part of the council agenda once it comes and a final decision on all of these. So to me, they should automatically be on a GC agenda. But I'll go through my questions, and I have questions because, quite frankly, to me, we go through a lot of detail during the budget process to agree to projects. And then we go through a lot of detail when those projects come to GCs with final approval. If they're within limits, it doesn't even come to us again, which is fine. I'd like to see that much detail on our closing of these capital projects, not just for myself, but for the public, particularly when they're significant variances. We owe it to the public to explain why there are significant variances. And lastly, to whomever, these variances all of them are going towards the appropriate account and the appropriate reserve. But do we capture that amount that we are, in most cases, we've over budgeted? Do we capture that amount, or do we simply put it back in the reserves? How do we deal with hundreds of thousands of dollars of funds that we've allocated to specific projects, and because they've come under budget, what do we do with that variance? Perhaps to Ms. Wainwright.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So when the capital projects are closed under our current process, any of the funds that are related for how that project is funded are returned to the reserve. So it goes back into the balance of the reserve, and then that funding is then available for future capital projects.
Councillor?
I understood that. My question is, do we capture that? Because we fund those reserves through our budget process, but we don't take into account, please correct me if I'm wrong, these variances that are hundreds of thousands of dollars that really were overfunding those accounts because we didn't capture that amount because they came in under budget.
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So as part of the budget process, we look at the reserves on an annual basis to determine what our capital budget can manage for projects wise and how they can be funded, and what the reserves are required to pay for those capital projects. So they are looked at on an annual basis. So when this money does get returned to the reserves, it is there and part of that analysis to pay for future projects. And it also means if it's returned to, for instance, a reserve that's paid through tax levy, then that's less money that we need to levy in the future, because that means it's already being come back from those projects where we have saved funds on.
Councillor?
Yeah, and that's good. And I'm going to pay particular attention to that. I don't recall seeing that. And I certainly don't recall us ever having a conversation saying, hey, we got some extra money here. We're going to commit that to a particular project. And we're not going to have to fund any capital projects or that particular capital projects, or we've reduced the balance on a project. I don't remember ever having those discussions at budget as a result of savings throughout the year on capital budget. So I'm going to pay particular attention on that, and I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong or I've missed something. Specifically to the report, the first one, 1.01. Music strategy, 50,000, project canceled and closed, return 50,000 to studies and reserves. And maybe I've missed something and I've been told in the past and I should make reference to that, and I don't recall, but to me, that's not a significant enough explanation of why we've didn't have to spend that. That project was canceled. To me, I want more information on that line, not just for me, but for the public. And if anyone asks, I can quickly say, that's the reason. I have no reason. I'd have to jog my memory in.
Ms. McDougall?
Yeah.
Yes, I apologize to you, Mr. Mayor, on this item. As you can tell by the original date, it was a while back. Former council would remember this was tabled by former councillor Abel in the hopes of having a program or a strategy for the music process. But that was with also an assumption that we were applying for a grant. At that time, we did not receive the grant. Therefore, this project was canceled. So unfortunately, it has remained tabled for some reason, but it should be coming off. It's ultimately was a project being presented with the hopes of receiving a grant.
Councillor?
Thank you. And that's a great explanation. And it's clear and concise. I just need that in the report. I'm going to go through, I have many, Mr. Mayor, but I'm going to go through the ones that stood out for me.
Go ahead, you have 10 minutes.
Great. How much time do I have left?
Mr. Duran, how much time does he have left?
Here, Mr. Mayor, about 6 minutes.
There you go. 6 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you. Some of them Councillor Gardner touched upon already. Item 2.06, tennis court resurfacing David English Park. Project completed and closed. Asked for CAFE fund of 15,000 from parks operating. General maintenance expenses was charged to capital project. So it was over budget by 75%. We had a budget of 35,000. We had a budget of 20,000. We spent 35,000, 15,000 over. So can someone explain how a 75% increase, if my math is correct, doesn't come back to council?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the project, when it was a resurfacing of some tennis courts, when we got there and we started the resurfacing, we found that the subgrade needed some additional work. And so we had to fix the subgrade before we could complete the finishing, and the project went over budget.
So through you to, I'm not sure who, but what percentage variance is within staff's realm to decide, and what has to come back to council? That's a 75% increase, not a big number, needed to be done. I'm not questioning that. I just want to know what that threshold is.
And Councillor, I don't think it's a percentage. I just think it's a number. But Mr. CAL, did you want to speak to that?
I'm not sure what that number is, so let me, I don't know if Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel knows that number offhand, or if we'll have to get back to that.
Okay. Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel, did you know that number?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure offhand. I would have to look it up.
Okay, can we get that for Councillor Gallo and the rest of council?
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor?
Likewise, 2.08 IT strategy, we budgeted 69.9, we spent 93, 35% increase, which equaled $23,000 over budget. Same question. Just a quick question on 3.42, picnic tables, garbage receptacles. It's budgeted 30,000 from 2017, and the note says product on order and being manufactured. 4 years.
Mr. Downey?
You, Mr. Mayor. So what happens is we purchase the materials, and they come in. They come in as a kit, and as part of a work project for the summer or during some off hours, staff put these garbage cans and picnic tables together.
Councillor?
I guess the explanation just doesn't jive with the date and product on order and being manufactured. But I understand what Mr. Downey said. You'll have to give me a second. I have to go into another document. Thought I had it highlighted, but I don't. It's the, maybe someone could help. It's the armory. I don't know if Ms. McDougall, if you could help me out. It's the armory one.
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I will attempt, and maybe Mr. Downey also could supplement my answer.
3.03.
Okay, I was thinking it was 1.16. So 1.16 is 89 Mosley, condition assessment.
Yes, that's the one.
Oh, is that? I'm sorry. I thought it was the construction, because 303 is the construction.
303 is the construction.
Yeah, it was actually the construction, the 303. Thank you. Just an explanation on. I mean, I realize not a lot of money, and probably we should be happy. We budgeted 5.3, came in about 5.39. And I think it's under closing, but just a quick explanation.
Mr. Downey?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. The project still has a couple of outstanding costs to it. There has been a request for a delay claim. I think you're aware of that, but we have not presented that to council at this time. Project ran over budget in two areas. One area was under my responsibility, which was the construction of the project. So there's a slight overage with regards to that. And the other overage had to do with the architect, and that was under the direction of the planning and development section. And those two resulted in an overage on the project.
Councillor?
Thank you. And just the one above that, Town of Aurora website, we budgeted 70,000, we spent 26,000. I don't really get that.
Who wants to answer that one?
43,000 under budget.
Ms. Van Leeuwen? Am I going to throw that to you, or?
Oh,
or Mr. Nadarozny, or CAO? Go
yes,
ahead.
Mr. CAO.
So, Mr. Mayor, there's been a number of changes that we've done throughout the planning of the new website, and we've used some different software than we originally set out. I can get more details of what's left undone, but we expect to close that off in 2020. There's ongoing work with accessibility and a new platform which replaces PlaySpeak, which will all be part of the web. So I can get more details on that to the councillor.
Councillor?
So, Mr. Mayor, through you to, I guess, Ms. Wainwright, Van Kessel, in terms of the active capital projects, I mean, they're still active. Should we expect additional variances on those items, or how accurate are they?
Ms. Wainwright Van Kessel?
For you, Mr. Mayor, so these variances on the active capital projects are the variances as at December 31st, 2019. So if the project is still underway and there is work still continuing, the variances will change until the project is complete.
Okay, thank you. So just in concluding, to me, I don't know what everyone else feels, but capital project that is being closed to me is just as important as the capital sheets when we initially budget, because it gives us a snapshot of how do we do. And there are many, and I didn't go through them all, where I have no idea how we did. I know the numbers, but I don't know why. The why is missing. That last column, the explanation to me needs a lot of work. Because if I was to go through this without having any explanation from staff, there's no way I would understand why we had variances, why budgets, why projects came in over, under. Very, very little information there. And to me, that's pretty important.
Thank you, Councillor. Did you, and I know you specifically want the public, and I think we all want the public to be able to go through this and understand it, but I'm just curious, did you take some time and reach out to staff to ask them these specific questions so you would have your understanding, and then still to bring them up as comments during council?
No, I didn't.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Humphreys. You've been waiting for a while. Go ahead. Oh, you're on mute. There you go.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. We've seen these pending lists for active capital projects for quite some time, and from when we started getting these back several years ago, there has been a marked improvement. Although we can always continue to improve. one of the comments I had made at one of the meetings, and I'm wondering if it might help us all, that we put this in sort of where the projects are closed, that they come off, they're almost in a separate section, closed projects. You know, were they successful? Do they come on time, on budget, and why not? And what's the discrepancy? That'll hopefully be clearer for the residents and ourselves. And there's ongoing projects and status updates or explanation that we just do a very brief, you know, what it is, you know, very, very high level, you know, why we're in this position, or are we on target, on track, why not? And then, you know, why are we over budget? Why are we under budget? Where did the money go and why? I think if we could just take a little bit of time in updating those, I think, you know, to Councillor Gallo's point, a little more clearer information for the residents and for ourselves, so that we're not having to go through this list and ask for all the different details. But I mean, you know, overall, the majority, you know, those are closed, are very clear. It's done. It's closed, done. Money's, you know, been returned to our reserves, whatever. But just those few odd ones that are, you know, sort of trying to read through. So if staff would sort of take that into consideration, to sort of take the closed projects, you know, take them off here, put them in, still on here, but in a closed section, why they're closed, successful, not successful. Where the money, you know, if it was over budget, under, and where the money was returned to if it was under. And then the ongoing projects that are here that we just have again, just some explicit details, very short bullets, executive style, but enough that we don't have to ask many questions unless we feel a concern on some of these, because we do have a lot of work going on. It also shows how busy we are. Lots of good work being done, lots of great initiatives. We just need to all be on the same page. That's just my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gardner, second time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 3.05, I agree with the comments from both councillors. 3.05, it's the accessibility plan implementation. I know that this is an ongoing, or it covers a certain number of years, but I did read in one of the committee reports, I believe it was the last one, or the second last one, that we are not compliant with the AODA. So why aren't we spending the money so that we could be compliant?
Ms. Van Leeuwen, are we not compliant with the ADOA?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was only one of the standards that we were not compliant with, and that's the information and communication standard, and specific to our website. So we're 92% compliant, and the initial list. So we submitted that compliance report in December with the old website. We've now launched the new website. We are working through some of those accessibility issues, and we do have a work plan. There is also a new standard that comes into effect in January of 2021. So we're working on dealing with the current accessibility issue, as well as planning for 2021 in enhanced standards.
Councillor?
Thank you. Good news. Thank you, Ms. Van Leeuwen. 3.54, the wildlife park.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I have a question with the notes. Outstanding maintenance warranty holdback of 5%, which is due end of December 2020. This project is already slightly over. So does that mean that 5% of the original cost of $877,000 is held back?
Mr. Downey, am I giving this to you?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, you are. So it's for the North Dam rehabilitation. So we wanted to make sure that there was a maintenance on that project. And so, yes, we held back money. And if everything turns out fine, then those monies will be paid.
Councillor?
So 5% is almost $44,000. So then are we going to be $44,000 negative when we get to the end of this project?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's not my understanding. My understanding is that has been already built into the price. So
Okay,
I don't believe that's the case.
okay, and Miss, I have so much trouble with your name, Miss Van Kessel, sorry. Miss Wainwright Van Kessel could confirm if that is true, that that's already included. It doesn't have to be tonight, but
Ms.
that
Wainwright Kessel, can you confirm that tonight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so the normal process with any contract which has holdbacks is as the work is completed, the cost is charged to the project, and then the holdback is considered a liability. So instead of paying the cash out, we just have that liability that we then pay when we're ready to release it.
Counselor, so it is included.
thank you. 3.6, I have a problem with 3.61 and 3.70. The 3.61, if you remember, a resident came to us who uses the hockey rink at the leisure complex. And I think it was a humidification problem. That was quite a long time ago, through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. 2015.
Yeah, so I'd like to know what's going on. I know it was a difficult issue, but I would just like to know what's going on with this.
Okay. Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, this project was a while ago. Facilities at the time were under a different department, so I can't even refer to my buddy Al to help me, my colleague. However, the history I'm familiar with, there was dehumidifiers installed that for the benefit of the adjoining wall between AFLC arena and the pool to try to help benefit with the condensation on that pool wall, as well in general for the humidity within the arena. We know from the assessment and building condition assessment more recently completed that this facility, this asset has larger and additional issues. Humidity is still one of them. The roof is a larger project. So ultimately the planning work in progress is staff taking a step back and looking at this project in a more wholesome, comprehensive review and bringing a report to council and at budget time on what our proposal would be for assessment of the arena, in particular the roof and the humidity.
Councillor?
I don't know if we kept that gentleman's name. I believe they used the rink. He said something fell on his head. I'm hoping that we might be able to get in touch with him and explain to him what the problem is, because he was, he was quite upset with, and of course, something fell on my head, I'd be upset too. So Ms. McDougall, if you possibly have his name, or else I'll see if I can find it. Thank you. The other one is 3.70. I remember when this was approved, I was at the leisure complex. I bumped into the squash players. They told me that the floor is terrible, and they showed it to me and it's terrible. And I told them that we had approved fixing the floor in the budget in 2019, but it's not fixed. So why would that be?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and unfortunately, our timing as it has been, we had a management change right about the time of Q2 starting last year, Q3.
Okay.
The scope of work is being developed with the intention that we will be issuing that for completion and hopefully within Q3 of this year. This obviously was Q2 noted on this template when the report was finished, and then unfortunately the COVID situation has happened since the report was completed. So that will be a delay in our ability to complete this project.
Councillor?
Thank you. And obviously nobody's using it at the moment, but it's also a little bit of PR. If we could try and, when we come back to playing squash, maybe someone needs to speak to those squash players or the fellow who's in charge and say, listen, we're really sorry, Thank you. My last two are 3.73 and 3.75.
And your questions are?
Yep. This, I don't know. I need an explanation. everything came in over budget. So what is happening with that? It says additional budget will be required in 2020. Well, we're in
Ms.
2020.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it'll be requested in 2020 for our 21 budget. So as staff are presenting the capital budget, it's unfortunate that all of these have come in over budget. However, what our staff are trying to do, as they are all similar projects, is to look at all of our roofing projects in a comprehensive manner, and issuing an evaluation of that, and hopefully from the market perspective, understand a bit better about where we stand. So our estimate to council is more in line, and therefore what we're anticipating doing is utilizing some funds to establish using a third-party consultant to assess a better evaluation of the value of what will be required for each of these.
Councillor, you're at time, so I'll let you wrap it up real quick. I'll give you 10 seconds.
Yes, there's a couple of items, and the reason it says there's a specifications issue. There was specifications problems. So are we using somebody new to give us specifications? Like, how's that being handled?
Mr. McDougall, and then Councillor.
And then
I'm going to cut you off after that. So Mr.
That's
McDougall,
fine.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the original development of the specifications was done by another third party. Unfortunately, they did not estimate it properly. We used their expertise to drive what we present to council. Obviously, we weren't satisfied. So we are revisiting those details as we tender for the next round and ultimately get an estimate for council.
Thank you. And there was another one as well, and I'm thinking your same answer. Thank you very much.
So Councillor, I would ask any other questions you have. Maybe you might want to talk to staff.
No, I'm done. I'd like to ask my questions at the table. I just got them done in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo, second time.
Thank you. Item 1.28, project 24011 mobile devices for BBC. 80,000 approved budget. We spent 38, 50%, over 50% off, $41,000. The explanation is project completed and closed. Return funds to source, 8,288 to growth and new reserve, and 33,151 to building reserve. Mr. Mayor, to your point, that's just one of many, many examples. I don't know about you or anyone else or anyone listening. That's not an explanation of why there's a variance, over 50% variance. If you're suggesting that I need to ask staff beforehand, my point is the entire report and the questioning. I was being gentle, but seeing as how you brought it up and asked if I had asked staff about this, I didn't, because to me it's egregious that we have those kind of variances and that explanation, which is nothing. There's no explanation there. That's one of many. This is my venue to ask staff. I don't need to ask them beforehand. I often do. If there's small stuff, I often do. When I see things like this that really bother me, I bring it to the public, and that's what I do. And I'm not embarrassed to do so, and I don't make any excuses for that.
Councillor, I don't think anyone's doing
1.28, an explanation of that one, please.
1.28. Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will have to check with my chief building officer and get back to you as to the reason for the variance.
Thank you, Mr. Waters. Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you for proving my point. That was my last one.
Thank you. And council, obviously we want these reports accurate, and we want the public to have a full understanding, and we expect these reports to come to us with fulsome information. But at the same time, we have a job to do. It's our duty. We are elected to ask questions, to speak to staff. And if you're only thinking you're going to come here once a week and ask questions, you're not fulfilling your mandate. I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next item, C3. Councillor Gardner, you pulled that one as well. Would you like to move that? Point of order. Councillor Thompson,
Not our health break, it's past 9 o'clock.
you are correct. We will take our 5-minute health, our 10-minute health break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have 4.
3.
I have 4. We're back. So Councillor Gardner, C3. Like to move that?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm really,
Just need a seconder. Councillor Humphrey, go ahead, Councillor Gardner.
I'm really glad to see that we are going to be making producers of packaging or manufacturers who wrap their things in packaging responsible for figuring out what to do with it. Though it's not happening for quite a few years, but we will be having a report back on our agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Is that all? I would say I agree. I think kudos to the provincial government when kudos is warranted, and I think they did a good job with this one.
Yeah. Thank
Any
you.
other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. C4. Councillor Gardner, I believe you pulled that one as well.
Thank you. This is about garbage.
Can I get a motion?
I move it.
Move it.
as is.
Second. Councillor Humphreys, go ahead, Councillor Gardner.
This is about garbage. And we can see from the pictures in our agenda that some people put out a lot of garbage. I'm wondering though, I thank Mr. Tree for the report. He really believes in education, and he thinks that if we educate, we can get compliance. I'm willing to try that. But I wanted to know, there are a couple suggestions in here that make me uncomfortable. The first one is that after a third infraction, a bylaw officer is going to have to knock on somebody's door, making it pretty hard for bylaw officers. I don't know if that's generally what they do with their bylaws, but I don't think so when they're trying to enforce bylaws. Could I have a staff comment on that?
Ms. Van Leeuwen, did you want to speak to that bylaw aspect?
Certainly, if we start with an education program and then we become aware, we start with education. And as per the report, on the third infraction, we would move to more progressive enforcement. We would engage in a conversation with the property owner or the occupant in terms of taking further steps in enforcement. So we knock on doors all the time.
Okay.
That's how we respond to complaints and have those conversations and then take appropriate action.
Councillor?
Thank you. One of the ideas is that part of the education campaign, we put door knockers on all residential homes. Are people walking? Are we paying people to walk from door to door? Because we've all done it in an election. It's quite a task.
Mr. Downey? Maybe we can do it during election time, Councillor, and each of us can go out.
That's what I was thinking, but it's a ways away, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Downey, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm always looking for recruits, so sure, that works for me. But no, that's exactly what we have to do, is we have to put door knockers on, and so send staff around, and we would do it over an extended period of time, and during periods of time when there may be a lull in the work day or whatever. But it's the only way of ensuring that people have got the notification, because our concern is once we start into this program, we're going to get people saying, I never heard about it. I didn't know anything about it. And so we want to make sure that we do everything we possibly can to get the message out, because at the end of the day, our issue is we want people to be compliant, and we want them to be respectful of what we're trying to accomplish here, which is reduce the footprint as far as garbage goes.
Thank you. We're the only one of the N6 that doesn't have a tag that goes with the bags. The other thing is, it sounds to me that the contractors, the people who collect the garbage are gonna have to keep records of people who put out more bags of garbage than they're allowed? Mr. Downey?
Mr. Downey?
Mr. Mayor, no. What happens is, depending on when this happens and how it unfolds, and we're giving you a process here at this point, but in the final stage when we actually execute it, if the town is going to enforce their 3-bag limit, if you put out 5 bags of garbage, they'll only pick up 3, and 2 bags will be left on the curb.
Councillor?
Yeah, I could just see those bags going by on a roadside somewhere. Okay, the last question is, I thought that we dealt with this issue briefly before, that we were told that the contractors charge us extra when they pick up all these bags.
Mr. Downey? Yes, we get charged by the tonnage, but I'll let Mr. Downey.
So it's tonnage.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, Mr. Mayor. So we get paid by the ton, or we get charged by the tonnage. So it's actually to the contractor's benefit to pick up as many bags as possible, because the more tonnage he has, the more money he makes, and he's already at that stop. So it's beneficial for them to pick up all the bags.
Thank you. Don't we have a 5-year contract with somebody, and the cost is already set out?
We just signed a new one, I believe, with GFL. Is that correct, Mr. Downey?
That's correct. We have a contract with GFL and GFL, but we estimate the tonnage that we pick up, and so our contract is based on that estimate, but that varies from year to year, and you'll notice budget variances from year to year.
Councillor?
I saw them. Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions to this one? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. C5. Councillor Gardner, you pulled this one as well.
I did. I find this very strange. I wanted to ask this at the table. Are you waving at me or the mayor?
Councillor Gallo, point of order. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry.
What's your point of order?
Oh, move the motion.
Yes, sorry. Move. Is that what you're doing, Councillor?
No, I had my hand up for a question.
For which one? The last one?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back.
Okay, I'll allow you a question because I didn't see it, and we're in new territory with this virtual, so I didn't see it. So go ahead.
I was waving my hand as well. Through you to Mr. Downey, what's the timeline on the implementation?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly our timeline was to have it implemented in 2020 or this year. However, based on what we're into right now, I don't know that that's advisable. So depending on how things unfold with regards to COVID and how quickly we can get back to somewhat of a normal or a new normal, then we will put together a plan or a timetable with regards to this plan. What we've done is outlined a plan. We put a proposed timetable in it, but I don't believe that's the appropriate timetable now. We wrote this report back when we weren't in COVID.
And is it expected to have another report come to council with I guess a final recommendation and implementation plan?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, our plan was not to come back to council. We wanted to give you an idea of what we were proposing to do. If we hear any concerns or you have any comments with regards to it, we'd be interested in hearing those. We already have council direction with regards to a bag limit. We're just want to give you some indication of how we are proposing to implement that council direction and the steps that we're going to take in order to ensure that the public are educated, they're well advised what's going on, and council is also advised of the steps that we're taking.
Councillor?
The only reason I ask is the report does say that on page 3, halfway down, pending council direction on this matter, staff are prepared to immediately proceed with the following plan, and it has a multitude of points. So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I saw that myself, but it was our understanding that with this information report, if council had any concerns, we thought we would hear them. So we weren't looking for any council direction. We have council direction at this point. You have a bylaw, you've passed the bylaw. We're just going through a process of how we would move that bylaw forward, or the implementation of that bylaw forward, because it has not been exercised for a number of years.
That's okay. I was referring to the report and that particular comment. That's fine.
Thank you, Councillor. And sorry about that. With 30 people on the screen, it's tough sometimes to see who's got their hands up. Councillor Gardner, we'll go back to that one. I need a motion to move it. You want to move to receive it? C5?
Yes,
Councillor Gardner?
yes, thank you.
Seconder?
Okay,
Go ahead, Councillor Gardner.
thank you. The
What's your question?
report was done by a staff member serving as secretary treasurer and assistant planner.
Mhm.
Those things don't go together to me, so it does seem a little strange. If it has to go offline, then it can, but that's very unusual. I haven't seen anything like that before.
Mr. Waters, did you want to explain the title?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. So Bershanti, she is Secretary Treasurer to the Committee of Adjustment, and also part of her role is as Assistant Planner, which essentially is a more of a junior planning role. And so she does do planning work in terms of site plan exemptions, items related to Committee of Adjustment. So she was the author of preparing this report.
Councillor?
That makes sense. I didn't know it was Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment. I thought she was in the Finance Department. Thank you.
That's all?
That's it.
Okay, call the question. I don't see any other hands up. All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Gilliland, or did you want to ask a question now? You put your hand up. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I just want to make sure, was this question directed to C5, or are we still, because I got cut out there and I just didn't hear if we were on.
We're on C5 right now.
5.
Okay, I got cut out. I didn't hear that part. So I do not have a question to this. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else? I will call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Okay, council, we now will move to R2, off-leash dog park in Highland Park. Someone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Humphrey, seconded by Councillor Gilliland. Comments or questions on this one? Councillor Gardner.
Through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Downey. I really like the idea. I think some public school kids came to us and suggested another dog park in that area. But this is to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, we had so much trouble with the last dog park, getting residents to maintain it and run it. What happens if we have the same issue here where residents do not want to take charge of this?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the genesis of this report was from a resident about 2 years ago. And they came forward and they wanted to put a dog park in this area. So we sat down, we talked about what they were looking for. We said that we needed to go to the Resident Association in Highland Gate and present the idea to them, which we did. And went back and forth with Highland Gate and the committee as to what they wanted to see there and that type of thing. And certainly talking to the resident, it was addressing their needs as well as Highland Gate's. And then went to the advisory committee and got their comments. So if this happens, we believe that we have this resident who is very interested in doing it. If for some reason they aren't, and another resident doesn't step forward, we will not be proceeding with this dog park.
Thank you.
That all?
That's all.
Okay. Councillor Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this coming forward and looking at next steps. If there is an issue with the resident maybe not wanting to follow through, I hope we can come up with a good solid plan to see if there's other individuals that would like to be a lead and perhaps put a committee together, because I'm sure it'll be well received in the community and that we'll have lots of volunteers for this. I'm not worried about it at all. So I'm looking forward to it. And I know that the kids at Regency Acres that would be thrilled to know that this is actually coming to fruition. And I really love to see that. You know, look at this, democracy at its best. You got some young kids that had an idea through some tough times and a situation that was tough with what happened with Highland Greens. And here they're coming up with a great idea to make it positive. So just congratulations to those kids. And I hope that this moves forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other comments or questions? Councillor Gallo.
Maybe out of order, but just, are there two parks named Highland Park in the town?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
But yeah,
this park block hasn't got a name. It happens to be in the Highland Gate development. And so we've attached a site plan to the report, but we haven't got a name for the park at this point.
The report says off-leash dog park in Highland Park. I guess it's not named yet.
Yeah, it's in the Highland Gate subdivision.
Councillor? Is that all? Okay. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next item, R3, Clean Communities Bylaw. Someone like to move the recommendation? Moved by Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Kim. Any comments or questions on this one? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Oh, Wendy. Yeah, Councillor Gardner.
Really good, and I'm very glad to see it on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
Thank you. And yeah, I'm really happy that we're revising some of our bylaw here. And I had a call by a resident just kind of coincidentally and just had a question that I wanted to have answered. And it was more aligned with the commercial properties and what kind of rules were set in place for commercial. I know there's been a lot of debris and waste and such, and just wanted to clarify whether or not that was indeed something that was more complaint driven versus proactive. I know there's been a lot of garbage behind some of the big commercial buildings. I don't want to name names, but there's big buildings and it's causing a big mess in our town. And I just wanted to kind of understand some of the bylaws behind that and if this has any effect on it.
Ms. Van Loon.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this bylaw does apply to all towns or all properties within the town. So it would apply to commercial as well as residential. We would, of course, respond to any complaints, open an investigation file and take appropriate action. Proactive enforcement becomes a little challenging at times, just depending on resources, priorities, and whatever other things are going on.
Counselor?
Okay, so perfect. So I mean, obviously, being proactive is very difficult. I understand that, but having the ability to at least bring it to the attention of bylaw, registering a complaint with an address puts that property in a bit of a high alert. Is there like a step process of warning if it's a repeat offender?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would always seek voluntary compliance through education. That is always our first approach. If we don't receive response or cooperation, we take a more progressive enforcement action.
Perfect.
And
Thank
then
you.
if it's, sorry, I was just going to say, if it's a repeat offender, we may then take enforcement as a first step. If it's a repeat offender, if we've already gone through education but we continue to get ongoing complaints.
Perfect. Perfect. And I'm assuming that applies same to open lands that maybe just an open field, but it's privately owned. Is that something that you find is a common complaint? And have we been successful in making sure that those lands are kept free from debris and blowing garbage?
Yes,
I don't think it's an issue. We may receive a few complaints. This does not apply to public authorities or public lands or any woodlots or woodlands. But if it's private property and it's an open space, it would apply. And then again, we would take action.
Great. Great. Thank you very much. I think I appreciate the clarity.
Thank you. Any other? Councillor Gardner, second time.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just ask Ms. Van Leeuwen. Ms. Van Leeuwen, we have a part in town, which I call Graffiti Alley. It's the area that goes from Yonge Street down to the parking lot behind Mary's and Oshucks and Kababa. There's a lot of graffiti there, and is that something that's checked by bylaw from time to time?
Ms. Van Leeuwen?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So we've never had any bylaws in place to deal with graffiti. That is brand new in this bylaw. We're bringing this forward now because we have received complaints. We approach property owners again. For the most part, we do receive cooperation and compliance. Well, I wouldn't say there was nothing to comply with, but we do receive cooperation for the most part. It would also depend on the ownership of the land. So the property owner is responsible. And I know that there's some confusion with respect to property ownership behind the Oshucks. It's a complicated area back there in terms of property ownership, but we would do our title searches, we would take appropriate action, and now we have the tools to deal with graffiti once we enact the bylaw.
Thank you. That alley actually, I mean, it's the stairway going down to the lower parking lot. It's actually problematic because I guess the walls of the building belong to someone, but that pathway is ours. But if push came to shove and it was an anti-Semitic or a hateful message on that wall, I think our bylaw would take care of it.
Councillor, it's correct. And Ms. Van Leeuwen, you can answer, but we would, something like that, we would take immediate action and get it removed immediately.
Thank you.
Yes, and if I could just add, we would certainly at that point also engage York Regional Police.
Thank you.
Councillor?
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on this one? I'm just going to throw out, I think it's great with the graffiti, what we're doing now. I might be a bit biased, but an excellent counselor back in the day created a task force to look after graffiti, and they did a wonderful job as a task force, and they actually removed quite a bit of graffiti. I actually went out and helped remove with YRP, and they had youth come out, and it was incredible how much graffiti is around town when you actually go out and see it. And so I'm glad that this is being added to it. It's a long time coming, and I'm glad it's here. So
Yes.
All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Council, we have one notice of motion that we will deal with at the end of the month at council from Councilor Gardner, and then we move to new business. So I am going to start as I see you on. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. Councilor Thompson, I saw you shaking your head. R4. I missed it. Don't worry. You don't have to put that point. R4, Regional Fire Service Study. Who would like to move that recommendation? Councilor Thompson, second. Councilor Gilliland. Comments or questions on this one? Councilor Thompson. Go ahead.
In addition to moving the motion, I'd also like to move alternative one, which is that council supports moving forward with a study of the potential creation of a regional fire service. Got it?
Can you say that one more time because you cut out on me?
So I'm also moving alternative one, which is the recommendation that council support moving forward with the study.
Okay, so that's an amendment.
Yes, well, the motion asks us to provide direction.
Pardon?
The motion asks us to provide direction.
Okay, that's the direction you'd like to apply. So would someone like to second that? Councilor Humphreys. Mr. Clark, you got that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Can we get that up on
Not
the
a lot more to add. I mean, last term on JCC, we did look at expanding Central York and had conversations with Richmond Hill. It's always been a conversation about, looking at expanding the fire service, making it a regional. I'm glad to see that the region is investigating it as well. I think it's long overdue and look forward to seeing the results.
Thank you, Councilor Thompson. Councilor Gardner?
Thank you. I would like to know what the financial implications are of this before I approve it. I'd also like to know what the fire department thinks about this.
You want to
I mean,
know?
I like the idea, but I'm not willing to endorse it until I know the parameters and the ins and the outs.
Well, this is just to say that if we want the region to look at doing a study at whether we should create a regional fire service.
Isn't our motion that we are in favor of creating it?
No, we're in favor of the region to explore and study it.
Proceeding with a, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And then we would get all that information of what it would cost to create it and all that. We would get that at that time.
Thank you. No, I misread it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kim. Oh, Councillor Kim, one sec. You didn't unmute yourself. There you go. Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't mean to get ahead of myself, but do you know or have any idea of is after the investigation, would this be an all or none proposition, or is the idea that even if a handful of municipalities support the amalgamation, that region will go ahead with whomever is willing to amalgamate, or it's just something of that nature? Do you have any idea of that?
Well, I would say that at this time, this would look at, and it has to pass a triple majority, which, I mean, if just in case no one understands fully what a triple majority is that first it passed at the region to look at it. It's got to pass the majority of the 9 municipalities, and then it's also got to pass the majority of the population of the 9 municipalities. And then you'd get the triple majority, and then we would move forward with doing a study. Once that study comes back, then regional council would look at whether we would want to move forward with what financial implications come forward as far as what the cost would be. And then at that point, if it was, let's say, if it was denied, it would be an all or nothing scenario, whether it would be whether we would look at creating that regional fire service. And if they decided not to at that point, it would come back, but that wouldn't preclude us from being able to look at continuing down the road as we were going to begin before this started. There was conversation about us looking at amalgamating possibly with Stouffville. Stouffville's still interested in looking at that, but we've put that on the shelf on hold until we look at a regional fire service first. And if that doesn't work out, then we can start to look individually with some of the other municipalities and see if it makes sense for us to consolidate within those ones.
Thank you. Ed, you said one of the triple majorities was the majority of the public within the municipality. Did you mean majority of council or the public?
No, so of the population. So you can't have, so in essence, you couldn't have the five municipalities from the north and everyone else saying no, because the majority of the population is saying no. So you need that aspect of it as well. So you need
So is there going to
population of York Region to say yes.
Okay, so there's going to be a public vote then. There's going to be a referendum.
No. When I say public, when I say triple majority and I say the public, it's the same as if we're asking for the composition of regional council. You need a triple majority. That triple majority is 50% plus one from the 9 municipalities. So 5 out of the 9 municipalities. And then the other part is the population of York Region is roughly it's 1.4, 1.5 million. So you would need 51% of that population out of the 9 municipalities to be voting in favor. So basically you need either a Markham and a Richmond Hill or a Vaughan and a Richmond Hill with some of the other municipalities to combine to equal 51% of the population out of those 5 municipalities that say yes.
Okay.
So very a lot of people have been trying to get rid of the triple majority for a while, but it's there, and that's the way decisions are made. Any other questions to this one? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. All right, now we'll move to new business. And I will go from my screen. So Councillor Thompson. No. Councillor Humphreys. No. Councillor Gardner, new business?
I'm wondering, there was a big fundraiser for the hospital, Oak Ridges Outfitters, and one of our local doctors, Dr. Kira Tone, were doing that. But of course, COVID happened. And then we also have the Run for South Lake. I don't believe, well, it didn't happen. It was supposed to happen on April 26th. But there were pledges for the run. And I mean, can we take that money and give it anyway to the hospital, even though that we didn't have the run?
I think that they just kind of have it on hold. That money is sitting there. It will eventually get to the hospital. They are expected to do the run at some point. So they're hoping to continue so they can keep fundraising and collect even more money. So I don't think that they want to just give those funds right now, whatever was raised, because quite honestly, it's not a lot of money at this point. It's not what they would expect to raise. So I think they just want to continue through the process. And when they give the new date out for the run, eventually, once we get through this pandemic, then they'll continue to do fundraising, and all that money will be raised for South Lake.
Thank you. And the other event, Dr. Tone and the foundation, it was to raise money for the Women's Health Institute, which is very important. So maybe we can find a way to help with that as well when it comes around. Thank you.
And Councillor,
I'm sorry, I've got more. I've got more. Sorry.
Yeah, we can bring that up to the Community Cares Action Team, and maybe we can have a little bit of a discussion on that one as well. That would be good discussion to have.
Okay. Also, are we giving students volunteer hours for helping with cleanup? And if we're not, can we?
It's been discussed at EOC. We haven't figured out. We haven't got an answer on whether it's something that we can do. There's a lot of conversation on how you maintain and make sure that people are physically distanced. Once they get into the ravine, they might meet up and do something. So we're trying to find out the logistics of it. It's a great idea to get them out, and we're also finding out if the schools would be providing the volunteer hours for them, if they would actually allow for the volunteer hours to be doing that type of work. So we're looking into that.
Thank you, because I've heard from a lot of residents about the state of the garbage, so it'd be nice to have some help. And the one you gave me, thank you. Since the dog parks are closed, we've seen a lot more dogs running at large. So to the public, dogs and cats have to be on a leash if they're on public property. There is a fine of $300, and if your pet is on property that is closed, public property that is closed, the fine is much greater. I believe it's $800. So to the public, please help us with your pets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallo, new business? No, thank you. Councillor Gilliland, new business? Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question for Ms. Van Leeuwen. There's been some confusion as to whether or not residents can have a small fire in their backyard, whether or not there was a COVID-related fire ban that was in effect. And I was hoping that perhaps, Ms. Van Leeuwen, you could shed some light on that and whether or not there is an actual fire ban in effect.
Ms. Van Leeuwen, I believe it's for the north, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, I have confirmed that there with CYFS that there is no fire ban in place at this point in time for Newmarket or Aurora.
Councillor?
Perfect. That's all I wanted to hear. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is that all?
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Kim, new business?
No, I'm good.
Thank you. I have two. Mr. Downey, it's great. The stop signs have gone in on John Westway. I saw them there today. Are the lines going to be there anytime soon? Because I think there's a concern that without the lines, people are not seeing the new signs.
Yeah, so I had that discussion today with staff, and I was glad to see the signs up as well, and we've got new on them. But we are waiting for the proper temperature of the road in order to put the paint down.
Okay. Okay.
So
Do you have a time frame roughly? I know it's not dependent on the weather, but
it's totally dependent on the weather. So I asked the same question of staff, and I got the same answer. It all depends on the weather. So as soon as we can, we're going to.
Are we looking at, is it the same as painting an exterior of a home? Is it, you're looking at a 10-degree weather for at least like a 4 or 5 day period straight?
No, I'm not quite sure what the critical temperature is on the road, but it's clearly the road temperature I'm looking at. So I would, staff are telling me they're waiting for it to go warmer. So, but they didn't give me a time frame.
Okay.
I would imagine it'd be very soon. I mean, we're getting warmer, so I was glad to see the signs go up, but that's the next thing we need to get to work on.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And then, and just kind of to go on, this is a little bit from what Councillor Gardner mentioned about the dog free leash. There's, can we just get maybe some more signage over at the Ducks Unlimited park area, trail park area. They're getting lots of complaints about dogs running leash free there. And so maybe if we can just educate people, and I know that there's a few signs already there, but maybe we can add a couple more if that's possible, if you can look into that, Mr. Downey.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We can post those are permanent signs, so we can post those in the wildlife park.
Yeah, maybe just scatter them out here and there just so make sure that people are aware.
Yep.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Public service announcements. I'll go the other way around. Councillor Kim.
Thank you. Get it here. The town of Aurora is proud to celebrate National Youth Week from May 1st to May 7th annually. Youth are a vital part of our community and contribute meaningful experiences through their participation in a wide variety of programs and events. This year's festivities are a little bit different as they are all online, but we continue to celebrate all things teens with giveaways, online tutorials, and some special content. To participate, make sure your teens are following our youth Instagram account at the handle @Aurora Teens.
Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Councillor Gilliland, public service. Go ahead.
Good.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. This is a good one. Don't miss the Connected Aurora's online art show. On now through May 15th, this collection of art is being featured exclusively online and provides an opportunity for a community to connect through art. All pieces featured will also be on sale. To view this diverse exhibit, visit aurora.ca/art show.
Thank you. Is there anything else?
Nope, that's great.
Okay. Councillor Gallo, public service announcement?
Reminder, all town facilities and parks are closed. Please do not use park amenities such as playgrounds, sports fields, basketball courts, tennis courts, and skateboard park. For more information, visit aurora.ca/COVID-19.
Anything else? Councillor Gardner, public service?
I already did the one you gave me under new business, but it is Mental Health Awareness Week. And I believe we all have heard or know that this is a very difficult time for people with mental health issues and people who don't have mental health issues. So I'll ask you, Mr. Mayor, eventually we're going to, or not eventually, but shortly, we're going to have a poster and information out from the Community Cares team. But if somebody is having mental health issues right now and they don't know who to call, they can always call the town hall and also the Canadian Mental Health Association. Maybe our town hall employees or the service desk has the link for Canadian Mental Health. CMHC, I think it is.
Yeah, they can always, we had a bit of that discussion at the, as you're aware, at the Community Cares Act.
Yeah.
There will be the stuff that will, all the information that will go up on the website very soon. But they can, from calling Access Aurora, from calling the region line, which is 211. But you know what? You can even call me. Call me and I'll
call us.
Call any one of us. And you know what? We're all here to help anyone in our community at any time. So please don't feel like you can't call any one of us. I'd suggest call anybody that we're all here to listen and to help any which way we can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Councillor Humphreys, public service announcements.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely call me if you want to talk. Anyone need to talk to somebody, I'm here. For public service announcements, the Town of Aurora's online Skylight Gallery also features a new exhibit for the month of May. Enjoy photographic work of artist Stephen Sloan and consider this the only natural exhibit. This online show captures the beauty in nature and invites the viewer to take a moment to appreciate all things this world has gifted us. To view the exhibit, visit aurora.ca/Skylight Gallery. So that's something very, very lovely to view. And also exciting, I want to thank staff very much. If all goes well, the farmers market will open on May 23rd. Great work done by Al, Robin, Tasha, John Furman, and Alex Rye in terms of all the things we need to do to make sure it's safe during these different times. So there's some final decisions to be made. More details to follow, but if all goes well, we'll be able to confirm in the next week that the farmers market will open so the residents of Aurora can enjoy some fresh produce from our local farmers starting May 23rd, long weekend. So looking forward to that to happen, bringing back a little bit of normalcy and something for the residents to look forward to. That's it. Thanks.
That's great news, Councillor Humphreys. Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Looking for ways to keep active and engaged at home? Check out our Recreation at Home webpage. This page is a curated collection of helpful, healthy, educational, and fun ideas for the whole family to enjoy while staying at home and physical distancing. For more details, visit aurora.ca/rec@home.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, and I have one. Are you an Aurora business owner that needs assistance during these unprecedented times? You can always reach out to our business and use our business assessment tool and request information and available resources, as well as arrange to speak with an economic development officer for further assistance if needed. For more information, you can visit aurora.ca/business support. There's lots of information. We know this is a hard time as well for our businesses, our local businesses in our community. So if you are confused, as far as we know, a lot of information is being put out there from the federal government, from provincial government in regards to financial packages. If you need a hand going through that, our town staff are here to assist you with that, to help you to look at what is available for you and what we can do to make sure that you get through this pandemic. So please reach out, and that goes for everybody. Please reach out. That's all we have. So I will, Councillor Gardner, did you have something else you want that?
Could Councillor Humphreys repeat that, please?
About which?
Or where on the website is this?
Where on the website? Which?
How would the public access the art exhibit that Councillor Humphreys?
Councillor Humphreys, can you just say that again?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Just 1 minute, please, and I will.
Just the link, please.
Sure. The link again for anyone to visit the online Skylight Gallery with the artist Stephen Sloan. Consider this its only natural exhibit. Visit aurora.ca/Skylight Gallery.
Thank you very much.
Did you get that, Councillor Gardner?
I got that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Gilliland, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening and a good week, and stay safe.